Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into today's video. We're going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days in today's video. And then we'll also have a look at CFS V2 for the rest of April. I think just about takes in the start of May actually with this. So we've got the blocking setting up over Greenland. I did a video about that yesterday. It looks like it's going to keep us very unsettled and changeable over the coming week to 10 days with low pressure very close to us. I'm not sure we're going to get all that much in the way of cold weather, and it's just because of the way this is lining up with the ridge, the blocking feature to the north and the trough underneath it. Just not quite lining up right to deliver us a cold shot from the north. Of course, very late into the year for that anyway now. But you can get colder shots in April, but I'm not sure you're going to get one of those this time. But I'll show you the detail in a second. We'll start off by having a look at CFS V2 El Nino forecast, or I should say ENSO forecast for the rest of this year, because there's been quite a big switch taking place with CFS V2 model over the past few days. But before we get on with all of that, just to mention the ads, there's links to articles on all of the pages. Have a browse through widgets and click through the links if there's any articles that you're interested in. Thanks so much for doing that. There's video ads on most of the pages which open up the content, but you've got to close back up again, and it helps to pay for the website. So this is the old CFS V2 forecast for the ENSO 3.4 region, which is sort of the central part of the equatorial Pacific. The black line here is where we've been with ENSO temperatures, sea surface temperatures in the equatorial Pacific. The black dashed line is the trend line for where the model is forecasting things to go. The temperature anomalies on the side, dates are along the bottom. So you see we're starting off still with El Nino, still got an El Nino going on, moderating very rapidly now from the high point that we reached at the end of last year. That was just there, virtually a record-breaking El Nino. You see that the trend in terms of the forecast going forwards through the summer and into the autumn was to reduce the temperature in the equatorial part of the Pacific Ocean. But not taking into a cold event. Very often after an El Nino, after a warm event, you get a cold event, a La Niña. The model wasn't seeing that at all, and we're just sort of reducing things to weak El Nino, possibly back to ENSO neutral. ENSO neutral is around here, really. But certainly no sign of anything that dramatic taking place through the course of the summer and into the autumn. I blogged about this last night. If you haven't read the blog at Gaz on this, do check that out. All you have to do is click the button on the top of the page that says blog, and you'll be able to go off and read all of our written posts. So this is the latest forecast from the CFS V2. You see quite a dramatic shift is beginning to take place now with the model. So the black dash line is dropping down into negative territory through the course of this summer. Again, dates on the bottom of the charts through the summer and the autumn. The black dash line, the forecast trend line, is now dropping down into negative territory. Not quite enough to be saying the model is going for a La Niña event, but the only reason for that is that these red lines, which are the oldest members of the CFS forecast, these are the oldest ensemble members, they're still in positive territory. The newer members, which are these blue lines, all of these blue lines are dipping down very much into La Niña type conditions. So once we take these red ensemble members out, just here, once we remove those, and assuming the newer members continue to reflect a switch to La Niña, I think we'll see this black dash line doing something more like that, really, than what it's doing at the moment. But nevertheless, the CFS V2 model is very much shifting quickly in towards a La Niña forecast for the summer and into the autumn. This has implications because when we go to a La Niña from an El Nino, when we do that rapidly, it can coincide with fairly poor summers, especially later summer periods. So watch this space. It looks like the CFS is moving quite a bit and is shifting towards predicting a switch from El Nino to La Niña through the course of this year. Right, let's just have a look at the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. The red line here is the 30-year temperature average. We're above average at the moment. We're going to go below average through the end of the week and into the weekend. The cooler phase coming up. Then after that, looks like we get a recovery in the temperatures. So despite the fact we have got quite extensive blocking, I'll show you that in a moment, quite extensive blocking over Greenland, it doesn't look like we're going to have anything all that cold. But what we are going to get is quite a lot of rain. Look at all these rainfall spikes coming up over the next couple of weeks. Really quite an unsettled spell, especially from the weekend and going through into next week, this period just here. Lots and lots of rainfall spikes coming through then. So here's the GFS for Friday, and you see the heights are going up across Greenland. Pressure is already starting to rise as low pressure moves in from the Atlantic. I think it'll bring rain across the country on Friday. And then Saturday does look really quite wet through the country. And we go through into Sunday as well, with low pressure anchored to the south and west of the country. We have got quite extensive blocking at this point. The ridge is building through the Atlantic and going up towards Greenland, but because of the exact position of this trough, it means that despite the blocking, we're still generally bringing the air up from a south or southwesterly direction, so it's not going to be especially cold over the weekend. We move through inside of next week, and again, same idea of the high pressure set up over Greenland and Iceland. The low pressure is out to the southwest of the country, so the jet stream and the flow going a bit like that. It means that we're drawing the air up still, generally from a southerly southwesterly flow. Winds are trying to back easterly across Scotland particularly, but not really tapping into anything particularly cold. And then we move through the course of next week. This is Tuesday on into Wednesday, so it's the middle part of next week. Basically, same idea. We've got the ridging to the north, but very extensive blocking, trough to the south, but again, the positioning just isn't right to be able to tap in to colder airstreams. And then we go through to day 10, which is Thursday, the 14th of April, and still basically the same atmospheric setup, which is high pressure blocking around Greenland and Iceland. Low pressure is underneath it. But again, the cold air associated with this blocking is being kept really to Scandinavia and to Western Russia, this area just here. It's being kept at bay just because the flow between the ridge and the trough, the blocking ridge and the trough in the Atlantic, is keeping the air generally coming in from a southwesterly type direction. So no late cold shot here, but a lot of unsettled weather with these areas of low pressure, probably bringing lots and lots of heavy rain bands. ECWF looks very similar. This is Friday. Going to be quite a chilly day on Friday. We'll bring an area of low pressure into that. That could produce a little bit of snow over the highest ground of Scotland, but generally just rain moving in off the Atlantic through the course of the weekend. And then we go through into the start of next week with the high pressure again out to the northwest, low pressure to the south, so it will be very unsettled. But nothing all that cold. It will probably be a fairly chilly wind, those easterly winds on the eastern side of the country, but nothing particularly cold happening there. And then through the course of next week, we keep it very unsettled with low pressure always close to the country, and the basic setup is similar to the GFS, which is low pressure to the south and to the west, high pressure blocking to the north, and the jet stream goes like that, which keeps us just about on the mild side of this trough and ridge with the air coming from the south and west. So I think we're probably looking at fairly coolish temperatures because of all the cloud and rain more than anything else, but nothing definitively cold, and just lots and lots of rain probably coming up through the course of next week. Let's have a look at CFS V2 for the coming month before I go. So this is the 500 millibar height anomaly, breakdown into week periods. The first week period is the coming week, the 4th through to the 10th of April. Very indicative of what we're just looking at from the GFS and ECM models, which is trough of low pressure, generally centred just to the west of the country with a blocking feature up to the north. That is a very extensive block, and we're lucky or unlucky, depending on your point of view, not to be getting some really quite cold weather plunging down with this, because it is a very extensive blocking that's sitting there around Greenland. But no, generally we're still keeping the temperatures reasonably okay as the air is driving in still between that trough and ridge of the Atlantic. And then very similar for week 2. This is the 11th through to the 17th of April. So very, very extensive northern blocking again, but this trough of low pressure centred just out to the west of the country means that the flow remains more or less from a southerly southwesterly direction. To tap into cold conditions, we need to take this trough east and centre it somewhere across Germany. If we were centred across Germany, then we would allow this colder air to push down from the north. But as long as the trough stays out to the west of the country, the flow will stay generally from a southerly southwesterly direction. Week 3, which is the 18th to the 24th, this looks a bit better actually. We've still got a lot of blocking to the north, but what's happening is that the trough is weakening to the west, and we're building this ridge up across central and some parts of Europe. So it will bring up fairly pleasantly mild air, probably even warm air from the southwest there through the 3rd week of April. And then that continues into the final week, which is the 25th of April through to the 1st of May. The ridge builds up from the south, will be very pleasant. The trough of low pressure being pushed into the central part of the Atlantic. Still notice we've got this blocking feature over Greenland, but again, it's still not able to deliver anything particularly cold just because of the setup. And what's actually happening is that we're drawing up quite warm air from the southwest and from the south. That will be very, very pleasant end to April with a real burst of spring going on there. So, well, that's all very speculative. There's no sign of anything cold for the next week to 10 days, despite this very extensive blocking that's going to be setting up over Greenland and the North Pole. Going to be one of those situations where even with blocking, good job it's not winter, because people would be very, very frustrated, I think, that want cold and snowy conditions. It's one of those situations that even with the blocking, it's all going to conspire probably to keep the air coming in off the Atlantic. But what we will get, I think, over the coming week to 10 days is a lot of heavy rain, and we may have to watch out for a bit of flooding as we get through into next week. Right, that's all for now. Thanks for watching.